Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. First of all, I wanted to say thank you so much to everyone who has stuck around and subscribed to this channel over the summer. I was making content pretty frequently last university term, and then over the summer I really just took the whole of the summer off. So thank you for subscribing whilst I've been away. And I'm excited to bring lots more content now to you about the dietetics degree. I'm just starting my third year, so it is the 1st of October and I've been at university for a week now. I am studying nutrition and dietetics at London Metropolitan University, and I'm just about to go into my third year. I'm doing the 4-year course, and I did a foundation year before that, so technically it's my 4th year at the university. Today I wanted to film a video reflecting on year 2 of the degree and going a little bit over my experience of year 2 before we move into the 3rd year and I start bringing you some more content, some vlogs and things. Before we get into that, I wanted to thank so many of you for reaching out to me and for asking lots of questions about the degree and showing so much interest in dietetics. It's super exciting to know that there is a community out there, and that's exactly what I wanted to create by filming for this channel. So if you're thinking of studying dietetics, or if you already are, then we can form a community here where we can learn from each other. Studying techniques, I'm definitely no expert, but I've been sharing some things that I've been trying along the way because I am a mature student, so I'm doing this degree a bit later and I've had a change of career from working in the fashion industry, so I'm figuring it out as I go along and sharing the process. But I wanted to say thank you to everyone who asked questions. I am also going to be filming a Q&A. I've collected together all of your questions. I'm sorry I haven't gotten back to everyone individually, but I'm going to film a sit-down video where I answer all those questions about the degree, about studying at London Met, and everything that I know about it so far. So today I'm going to cover a few topics. First, I'm going to talk about my overall experience studying nutrition and dietetics after year 2. I'm going to talk through all the modules that I covered in year 2 and what I felt about them, and some general things I've learnt along the way throughout year 2 of the degree, some things I've learnt other than just the science and the dietetics content, and finally my tips for if you are about to start year 2 of the nutrition and dietetics degree. So first of all, my overall feelings having completed the year 2 of the degree. I would say it was definitely the hardest year so far for me, and I know that that is a little bit boring to hear because I think most people that do a degree do say that year on year it gets harder, which is understandable. You're going up a level in the difficulty of the subjects. But I have also started now year 3 a week into year 3, and I have seen the sort of coursework I'm going to have to be doing this term already, and I think I can say that for me personally, year 2 was particularly hard because of the type of coursework we were being set. In particular, there were a lot of scientific reports, and this was kind of my first experience of them. Even though in the foundation year and in year 1 we had to write some scientific reports, there was just a big step up in what they were expecting. So the style of writing, the language you use, and the topics were a little bit more distant from what dietetics would be. So when I go through the modules I'll explain a little bit more, but just things like biochemistry, microbiology, you know, these topics are very far removed from what I've been doing the last few years working in the fashion industry. So they were just a bit harder. I felt like I didn't necessarily have a grounding in those topics, whereas when we're doing one of the modules that's like nutrition and dietetic care, I have so much interest obviously in becoming a dietitian that I've done a lot of my own self-study. So those, when you're set a piece of coursework in a module like that, for me personally it was much easier and it felt less daunting. Whereas when it was in a topic like microbiology or more of the biology or the chemistry side of things, that felt like I had less of a grounding there. But if you come from previous study where maybe that's fresher in your mind, or if you're coming straight from school, then I'm sure that that will be much less daunting for you. So it was harder, however, I got through it. I would say it was amazing because it really started to feel real. I'd say year one is very sort of easing you into it, and everything is quite broad. The topics are very broad. You're learning a lot about anatomy, which is super fascinating and really does start getting you excited. But year two is really when we started talking about like what are we actually going to be doing as a dietitian when we're with a patient, and that really just made it feel much more real for me. I felt more confident talking about my degree just in like everyday life. When I was telling people what I was doing, you start to really feel closer to the profession, and lots of guest speakers coming in who are dietitians, which was amazing, you know, learning about the different fields that you might one day specialize in. So I found year two really great for that. It's very inspiring, so even though it's difficult, you do feel really inspired by all the dietitians that you're meeting. For me personally, another amazing thing about year two was the fact that I got to know my cohort more. So obviously every university is different, but London Met is, within the London area, one of the universities that supplies the most courses in dietetics. So there are many different courses running every year, every term. There's a 4-year, there's a 3-year course, there's a master's course, and the uptake on these courses has like doubled year on year. Like, they are taking so many more people now than ever before. And also there's lots of other health science degrees at the university. So in my foundation year and in year one, I was with lots and lots of students. So you're in lecture halls with hundreds of students at the beginning, and you don't necessarily learn who's actually on your course. And my course actually was a bit more of a smaller uptake, so there's about 25 of us in total on the actual nutrition and dietetics degree, the 4-year course, the year that I started. But in year one I really had no sense of that. I didn't really know who were my direct colleagues, I suppose. So year two's been really nice because there were a few modules that we were just in our small group, and that was really nice to connect with them more personally, make friendships that actually you feel like, oh, we are going to talk again next week, because I think at the beginning you kind of meet people and then you don't sit next to them again because it's a huge lecture hall and things like that. So it's been really nice to actually get to know some people personally, and I feel that there was much more of a supportive feeling about that, because you could be like, oh, like when is that due date, or just general advice, and just hear how other people are feeling about the degree and if they're struggling with certain things. And it was much more personal for that reason, so I really loved that. And a second point that's very similar, I really enjoy getting to know the lecturers more. When you're in that smaller sort of class and we were having tutorials, they get to know you personally, they call you by your name, and they just feel so much more approachable. And yeah, I think it was really great for me, and that's now only continuing even more now in year three. So the further along you go, the more you're just with your cohort really. So that's been really nice. For me also, year two was great because I finally started utilising what the university had on offer with regards to academic support and help. I, before that, had never really asked for much help. Like, I hadn't gone to any of the office hours where you can go and see your lecturers and ask more questions, and I've never had anyone look through my coursework before I'd handed it in. And finally in year two I utilised all the help that was on offer, and it was really great. It was so good to have some direct feedback before I handed in coursework, because year two at London Met, anyway, for my year, has been very coursework heavy. So it was really valid valuable to have that help from the lecturers. I would say that London Met is really good university because they're constantly evolving, they're always taking on student feedback. So the modules, the way they are ran, and even like the coursework and the exams do change year on year if they think that there's a better way of doing it. So even though I'm speaking about my experience now, this year 2 next year could be slightly different for you, but for me it was quite coursework heavy. And I would say if you find that hard, if you find essay writing hard, then just reach out to all the help. There's so much academic support and help with your essay writing. There's so much help there, and I think this year has been much better for me because I've actually asked for the help. Okay, so on to the modules that were covered. I thought this might be interesting for you if you are looking at studying the degree. I know that on the website at London Met, and I'm sure it's the same for other universities, they do share the general flow of the years so that you see what sort of modules you're taking, but I'm not sure if I really knew all of them, so I thought I would share them with you. I'm gonna look at my phone so I can see. So first of all, in the autumn semester in year 2 we had management of disease for dietitians, which was really interesting. That was one of my favorites. I think we really started seeing like what we would be doing with regards to different diseases as a dietitian. That can really start getting you thinking about what you might like to specialize in one day. And it was interesting because there was lots of different specialist speakers that came in for that one. Then we had metabolic biochemistry for nutritionists and dietitians. So this was one of my hardest modules. I found it really, really difficult. There was a group poster project which I really enjoyed, and that was very easy, but when it came to the exam, like, it was really difficult for me. I didn't really have a grasp on it, and then I missed some lectures, and then it was also a really big lecture hall, and I should have asked for some more help with this one. But since then I've done some further studying on it because I wasn't very happy with my result that I got in the exam, and I think I do still need some help to get that a little bit more concrete in my mind, but at the moment it hasn't come up again really in any other module that I've needed to know it in too much detail. But for me it was difficult, and I think I should have got some better books as well to help explain it a little bit clearer to me, and just done some extra work really. Next we had professional practice in dietetics. It was very interesting. It was one where you have to do it basically, because being a dietitian in the UK anyway, you are HCPC approved and so that means that you are constantly checked professionally. It's for the safety of the dietitians and also for the patients, so they hold you up to a certain level of practice, and this was sort of learning all about that, learning about what it means to be a dietitian working within the NHS or within healthcare, how to protect patients and how to protect yourself, and like record keeping, note keeping. So it's an essential thing that we have to learn. Sometimes it can feel a bit dry, but it was really interesting and felt like another step towards becoming qualified. And then finally in that term we had dietary assessment techniques, which was really interesting and super practical. That's how you're eventually going to take down people's dietary histories. There are a lot of different methods, and so it can feel a little bit dry going through all the different ones, but it was really practical, very interesting, super relevant, and coursework was a bit hard work because you had to track your own eating, and it was a great exercise really, because you got to see how difficult that can be for some patients and for compliance. So that was really interesting. Then we go on to the spring semester, so there's food science and microbiology. This was really interesting, a little bit hard to remember everything. There is such a vast subject, and it's really like our entry into that topic. and we don't go too deeply into it. I think it is just the one module that you cover in the whole year, but it was really good. Really great lectures, I enjoyed it. And then there was nutrition and dietetic care, which was really, really good. That is definitely one of my favourite subjects of year 2. It was my favourite piece of coursework. We were given a patient case study who was at risk of dysphagia, and they had to have a texture modified diet, and we went in the kitchens and we created our own diet plan for them, and then the coursework was to write up your whole patient pathway with them and the treatment pathway, so that was really, really interesting. Then there was a module on macro and micronutrients. As you've probably already guessed, I'm gonna say it was really interesting. But again, like I was saying, compared to year 1, these are things like, this is it now. You're like really learning about nutrition and like all the reasons that you probably have chosen to study dietetics, you're really starting to get introduced to them now in year 2. So that was amazing. It is super vast though, hard to remember everything. I think I was holding myself up to quite a high expectation to be able to remember every single tiny thing about every nutrient, which is quite hard, but I think, you know, you will eventually learn it all. Like, just don't put too much pressure on yourselves. And finally, there was applied public health nutrition. Super interesting. First proper time we've learned about public health, and this was amazing just because it really broadened all of our horizons. I think before now we have been looking very much at a clinical practice, so working in hospitals eventually, but this really opened up another field and the whole like area of public health and what the potential is working as a dietitian within that. So really great, and that sets you up for your first placement, which was at the end of year 2, my public health placement, which was in summer. So I will film a separate video where I explain all about my experience on that placement, but that module really sets you up for the public health placement. So really, really great, good introduction, and I would love to learn a bit more really. I hope you enjoyed learning a little bit more about what the year 2 was like on the nutrition and dietetics degree. So here we are the next day. I'm looking a bit different in a different room, but my battery ran out yesterday and then I had to go out. So I really wanted to get this video finished for you and uploaded as soon as possible, seeing as it has been so long since I uploaded, and really wanted to recap on year 2 of the degree before I went on to start year 3. So just to finish up, I wanted to share my top tips following the year that I've just had at university, and I would say that number 1 would be to ask for help. Utilize all the help that your university has to offer, all the help that you can get with regards to dietetics. It is such a vast field. There are so many different areas of the degree. We're really not just learning about nutrition, and especially in year 2 I personally found the diversity of the modules was pretty huge, and it meant that maybe it was a little bit more difficult to shift gear from one frame of mind to another, and you're not going to be really strong in all of the modules, and so it's absolutely okay to ask for help, and it's really important that you do. The university is there to support you, and I find London Met incredibly supportive, and there's so many different things on offer. If you don't feel like you've been told everything, definitely look across your university pages online, contact your lecturer. They'll be able to point you into the right direction of how to get extra help, especially with coursework. I found this term really getting lots of feedback on my coursework was really valuable, and I felt it reflected in my grades that I got this year. My next tip would be to also reach out to your colleagues, like your peers, other people on your course. Get to know who's actually on your course, in your cohort. I think it will happen naturally for you as you go through the degree. You'll realise who's actually on your course. But now year 2 is a great time to start making those connections, start opening up a little bit more to people, because you're all going to go through the next few stages of this degree together. Like, you will all be on your placements at the same time. So for anyone that doesn't know, in the UK when you do a dietetics degree, you go on to placements, and this is where you work full-time, like normally based in the NHS. And so, you know, having those connections with your peers is going to be so vital when you're all going through that same experience together, like being able to talk to someone who really understands what you're going through. So I think year 2 is a great time to start laying down those relationships. My next tip would be just to breathe and relax, and it might seem really intense, and I felt there was a huge step up in the amount of work. And like I said, for me personally, it was quite diverse, so it was not everything was within my strengths, but it's okay. You don't need to be the best at everything, and that's okay. You know, some of these topics might be the first time you've ever even considered anything about microbiology, for example, and it's okay not to feel like, yeah, I'm really getting this in every lecture, in every tutorial. It's absolutely fine. And I have found that the degree is very much sort of like building blocks. They slowly start putting in the knowledge, and sometimes one building block seems a bit like, well, this is really strange and doesn't feel very relevant, until then maybe the next term comes along or the next year comes along, and then it like all connects because you do another module and you're like, oh my gosh, that's why we spent so long learning about the heart, because now I'm going to be able to understand how this medication works, or so many different things like that. Like, I really would just say to don't freak out too much if you're really just not understanding something, or understanding why you're being taught it as you go along. Like, it does become clearer, and you will find your strengths in whichever area that is, and you just don't have to feel that you're completely grasping every subject, especially some of the ones that are a little bit more sort of like the chemistry, the microbiology. Like, it is really important as a dietitian. Like, it is a science-based, evidence-based profession, but at the same time, like, you will learn and develop other skills, and if you're not understanding it there and then in the moment, you can always work on it through summer, and you can still get through this degree. Finally, my tip would be to give yourself plenty of downtime. I feel like last year I didn't do that enough, and it's something I'm now going to prioritize much more in this year. Just filled the days, filled everything with work and things, and I think just taking small moments every day for something self-care, like not necessarily self-care, but just making sure that you have a cut-off point with studying and a little bit more structure. I'm sure it's something you've heard so many times before, and I kind of feel that you almost have to go through it yourself before you realise, oh yeah, I did actually need a bit more time for myself, or I needed to have some things in place to switch off from studying. So I think that would be my final tip. I really hope that you've enjoyed hearing a little bit more about what year 2 is like on a nutrition and dietetics degree in London. If you have any more questions for me with regards to the degree, the course, or the university, please let me know in the comments down below. Like I said at the beginning, I am filming a Q&A. I've had lots of emails and messages already with lots of really great questions, and I thought I'd put them all together in one video. So if you do have any others, then I can add those onto that video. But until then, I just wanted to say thank you again so much for being here and for subscribing. It's really great to start building a community in the nutrition and dietetics student space, and thanks for bearing with me the long summer off. It's been a bit of a hectic one, but much needed, and I'm looking forward to bringing more information to you about what year 3 holds for us, and also filling you in a little bit more on the placement process on the degree. Thanks so much for watching. Bye.